just a quick review. I think that you see in the first presentation of growth management that, without cooperation, there's a history of things not really working as well in the land, and some of the reasons why that sprawl is things have sort of grown without proper coordination in the past, not as good as it is in the present. And the infrastructure requirements, some of the things I have in the presentation I do about how you pay and develop infrastructure or growth is reflected in the past, and in Columbia's past, about how the infrastructure hasn't always been as effective as it is now. We looked at cooperation and moving around. Think about the road system here and how that's grown. And now we have all this cooperation on the trails and the roads to hopefully make those more effective. Economic development is how we pay for all of that. And these are all been pretty tangible presentations, but our seventh one's a little more esoteric, a little less tangible. And it's really sustainability and livability. And what does that mean? And Rachel Bacon from the Planning Department will be our presenter. And last but not least, Rachel.
Sorry. I want the ledge, Larry. Okay, so what do livable and sustainable communities mean? My badge says that this is a comprehensive plan for a sustainable community. So bringing it all together, livable and sustainable communities are vibrant places people want to move to and places people never want to leave. They're the places where the design of buildings, sites, and public areas promote healthy and desirable living conditions. They're habitable, comfortable. They incorporate designs and practices that enable the current generation to meet its needs without sacrificing the capacity of succeeding generations. So more simply, it's basically living within our means. Old concept, reapplied to new times. These vibrant places are designed for longevity, life stages, the inclusion of all citizens, public safety, mobility, and high-quality community spaces. And they also promote quality of life as an economic development driver, such as recently with IBM coming in. They have equitable access to needs and services for all people, and they use infrastructure that is sustainable. Oops, I'm not on the right page. Okay, infrastructure that is sustainable, efficient, and effective, just like this slide is for presenting this information. They also promote density and infill as tactics and tools to develop our vibrant core. The focus is really on protecting and promoting what we already have rather than building out on the fringes, as we saw with growth management. Okay, so to borrow from Manil, those cities that really have their act together, and I'm not going to qualify whether or not Columbia has its act together, because you're here and you're going to tell me in about 10 minutes whether or not we do. But there are 7 principles that these communities that have their act together really do well. They design for all. So the idea of universal design is that our design fits the needs of both the very young, the very old, and also, and most importantly, people with disabilities. They provide a lot of multimodal transportation options, so good infrastructure, good facilities for walking, biking, transit. They have access to jobs, education, services, and basic needs. And they have a variety of energy-efficient housing choices, mixed land uses and building types, which is really what gives us our vibrant, diverse community. It also allows us to use our existing infrastructure and focus on our urban centers, our urban core, and our downtown areas. And also these communities that have their acts together promote environmental and cultural resources. It's really enhancing and protecting what we already have. Okay, so these ideas, they're not new in Columbia, not at all. The Metro 2020 plan, which was then incorporated through the visioning process, already defined various factors that make for livable neighborhoods. Livable implies that a neighborhood is safe, with a focus center and easy access by various or multi-modes of transportation to schools, shopping, and services. So there are 13 policies that the plan outlines, lots of words, but the big ideas here are that you have a variety of choices, both in housing and transportation. You have mixed use, which promotes vibrancy. You also provide a lot of amenities, and you protect existing cultural, environmental, and cultural, environmental, and neighborhood resources. Okay. So with all of these words, how do you know if you live in a livable and sustainable neighborhood? Well, really quick question or two that you can ask yourself. Can kids trick or treat in your neighborhood? Can they walk down the street or take their bike to get an ice cream cone? Well, if they can, then you probably live in a neighborhood that is safe, walkable, and not only is it walkable, there are nearby places that people want to actually walk to, such as for an ice cream cone. Okay, so how are we getting there? Well, the city's really, I would say, leading the way, but the private sector is also promoting these ideas. The city has an Office of Sustainability. It's funded by an Energy Efficiency Community Block Grant. It looks for energy and cost savings in public buildings, including the one that we're in tonight. And in fact, this building, for those of you who don't know, has gold status from the Green Building Council. So for leadership in energy and environmental design, we are almost at the top tier as far as what you can do with reusable materials and in energy efficient standards. And then there are 4 other city buildings that also have a LEED classification. And then the private sector, 5 buildings currently have LEED status, including the Wright Brothers Mule Barn, as shown above. Green Roof. It's also a historic building, which is great because it's a perfect example of both using environmental design and also adaptive reuse or rehabilitation of existing buildings. So when you think of green building, historic preservation is really about as green as it gets. You're taking the existing resources that you have, and then you're rehabilitating them and putting them back into the mainstream commercial, housing, office uses. So in the past 10 years, and I really have to thank Carrie for this lovely statistic, 24 historic tax credit projects in Columbia have created 392 jobs, 108 housing units, and has generated $75 million to the local economy. So all of these ideas, sustainability, livability, we're drawing on use of infrastructure, growth management, transportation, economic development. So it's really kind of the broad umbrella idea that brings all of these other factors together. Okay. The city also promotes inclusiveness and diversity. We've got a glorious annual diversity celebration breakfast. Our Human Rights Commission promotes fair housing. Our Affordable Task Force has recommended universal design principles. And the city is currently undergoing an ADA transition plan, which evaluates policies, city policies, to encourage access to all facilities and programs by all people. Additionally, the city has been working on a lot of design studies and programs, particularly downtown, to improve the aesthetic quality of public spaces. So the downtown design charrettes that many of you attended last year are a really good example of how we're looking to do what we do even better. Okay. So a few closing thoughts before you give me your opinions of what we're doing and what we can do better. Is sustainability just a new way of looking at old values? What can we learn from the past to enhance our future? And also, how can your current neighborhood become more livable and better fit your lifestyle? Okay. Sorry I dumped your stuff.
That's all right.
Well, thank you to Rachel in doing a great job of sort of wrapping up all of the 7 theme areas into one. So thank you, Rachel, for doing that. First, I'd like to just say you have no idea how much work everybody put in. The presenters, the Comprehensive Planning Task Force, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Planning Department. So I think we should give them a hand because it's getting these to 5 minutes has been amazing. When we first talked about elevator speeches and getting these in 5 minutes, everybody says, oh no, it can't be done. And I think you saw tonight that it can be done and done very effectively and done very well. What we're going to do now is break into 7 different of the theme areas. And so if you give everybody about 5 minutes just to sort of move around, maybe go out in the hallway for 5 minutes and come back so we can get everything set up. Because there's going to be PowerPoint presentations, the copies of those. There's going to be existing condition reports that have links to a lot of other reports in each of those areas that are 8 to 10 pages long. There's a survey that you can write for your information down. You can give comments the task force members and the staff that are there. So let me tell you where you can go. So out in the foyer, there's going to be two, and that's going to be the land use and growth management and infrastructure. And then at the square tables here, as I go in order, will be environment, economic development, intergovernmental cooperation, mobility, connectivity, and accessibility, and sustainability and livability. And we'll have those information. So we'll have staff get the various information there. So if you can give us 5 minutes to do that, and then you'll have until about 20 till 9, and we're going to reconvene at 8:40 and just give you some other ways that you can take this information and be involved. So this is your chance to, this is the story. And the simple planning process I learned a long time ago is where you want to go, where you're at now, and how you're going to get from here to there, though we have that in 6 phases in the plan. But this is where are we now, and it's your chance to chime in on these 7 theme areas about, are we right, are we wrong, what do you think where we're at now, so we know that baseline as we move forward, we know where we're at. So it's your opportunity to do that. So thanks everybody for coming. Now it's your chance to chime in.